Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Go to Joe 303.
Tomorrow's Superstars Tuesday.
Is that the stable genius saying that?
30330.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. How many unsafe bridges you still have here in the state of Iowa? And
This is a guy who doesn't know what he's doing.
We choose truth over facts.
We'll see who's sleepy.
I'm not going nuts.
30330.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the go. You know the thing.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
I got started out in HBCU. No mistake. Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck.
30330.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show.
Mike Pounds.
All right, so it's Thursday. We got a show for you guys today. We have you guys
Tolerate
it. I'm sorry, I love it. Apparently, Soundboard is taking requests. Anyway, so look, it's Thursday. We got a great show for you guys today. We are going to talk about, of course, the Supreme Court giving a little bit of L to Donald Trump. Is that the right way to say that? Like, I know there's take the L, but do you give the L? Is that what you? I don't know, dude. I'm not hip with like the kids. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about that. We'll have a little bit of fun, and then we'll get into serious stuff. Like, for example, we have teachers versus Betsy DeVos and Donald Trump when it comes to reopening during COVID. That's really important. We'll talk about that and why the current plan is a terrible idea. We also are going to talk about who got bailed out by the Paycheck protection program. Boy, oof, you're not gonna like that story. It's gonna infuriate you because of who exactly has been getting money. So we've got that, and then of course Joe Biden speaks to Addie Barkan, who of course is a Medicare for All activist, about Joe Biden's lack of Medicare for All. Support, I should say. All right. You know what's funny? Goku just saying says help Cenk get a soundboard on TYT. It's funny because he could easily do it, but I don't really know Cenk very personally. I've met him like a couple of times for 5 minutes apiece. I already know that he's not the best with technology. And so, look, he's, needs a little bit of help. So setting up a soundboard, I can do it because I'm a little bit more tech savvy than the usual person. But, it can be a little bit difficult to set things up and have them work correctly. I'm not saying I wouldn't help Cenk if he asked, obviously, but he didn't have to ask. I'm just saying. He has a soundboard, but it's set up in the studio. So, I'm talking about when he's broadcasting at home, as he is now, thanks to coronavirus. And so he can't do the soundboard now. Get Cenk a soundboard. You have to be in the main show as a guest. I could. I don't know. Maybe use a little bit of that cloud or whatever. All right. Anyway, so one more thing before we go.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
All right. Anyway, DJ touchpad. I actually have something else that works as my soundboard. I have one of these. So if you're not familiar with what this is a Stream Deck. And what it does is that it helps me be able to control all the different graphical and sound elements of the show. It's really handy. But understand, I've actually been doing the show for a long time without a Stream Deck, so you don't necessarily need that. That's not an ad, by the way. They don't don't misunderstand. It's not like an ad, right? I don't get paid by Stream Deck. But I'm just saying, that's what I use, and it works pretty well. So if hey, Stream Deck, I'll do an ad. help a brother out, right? But it works well for me, but I've done it before. Had a soundboard and everything without the need for that. You just have to know software. You just have to set it up. I'm willing to help anybody who wants to ask, to help them set it up. I'll definitely do that. Because I'm a helpful guy. Is it like speed dial, but for sounds and images? I mean, kind of. It's basically a shortcut. It puts everything in front of you. It's really neat. So, yeah, like I said, I'm willing to help anybody out who streams to do this. Okay, Stream Show, yeah. Well, I mean, look, if Kyle Kalinske can get known as Big Seltzer, then I guess I could be Big Stream Shill, although that sounds weird, but you know what? Whatever. Anyway, on to important stuff. Or not. So President Donald Trump is having a bad one following an unfavorable ruling when it comes to his tax returns. So now Axios reported earlier today that the Supreme Court, had ruled that the Manhattan prosecutors can obtain President Trump's tax returns, his financial records, as part of their investigation into hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels during the 2016 election. So Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance Jr. Wanted 8 years of tax returns as part of that investigation. It looks like he's going to get it. Well, it's awesome. Now, the 7-2 decision is being described as a stinging loss for Donald Trump, who has fought to keep these records secret, with some wonder as to why they're secret. Now, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in this decision, which, by the way, this decision was also supported by Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, two Donald Trump appointees. So that's just a little extra flavoring on this. A little bit of icing on the cake. All right. So anyway, Roberts, writing for the majority, said 200 years ago, a great jurist of our court established that no citizen, not even the president, is categorically above the common duty to produce evidence when called upon in a criminal proceeding. We reaffirm that principle. Well, would you look at that? It looks like President Trump is not above the law. So much for those claims for or claims of immunity, right? Because that's what Donald Trump has been claiming for quite some time. I'm above the law. As president, I have complete and total immunity from prosecution. No, turns out you do not have complete and total immunity from investigation or possible prosecution. Again, this is a criminal case involving campaign finance law. So now this is the same, by the way, the same law that Donald Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, is serving prison time for. So Cohen's in prison, and now they're investigating Donald Trump to see whether or not he knew of the payments to Stormy Daniels, and whether or not that information is reflected in his tax information. So that said, right? Second ruling, right? There was actually two related to his tax returns. Now, along with granting the Manhattan DA's office access to his records, the court also decided to punt on the issue of House Democrats getting access to similar records. So now this is getting punted to a lower court, with the courts basically saying, hey, not my job, right? I'm not really interested in doing that. Now, that does mean the Democrats, they're not going to get their hands on any of Trump's financial records ahead of November. If they get access to those records at all, that depends, of course, once again, on lower courts. But at least in principle, again, Donald Trump, the courts, the court basically rejected Donald Trump's argument that he is above the law, and that's something to celebrate. That means we still have some functioning law and order in the country, and that's a bit of a relief. Now, Manhattan District Attorney, Attorney General Vance called the ruling a tremendous victory for our nation's system of justice and founding principle that no one, not even a president, is above the law. Donald Trump, of course, raged. And this is always fun. He said, "This is all political prosecution. I won the Mueller witch hunt and others, and now I have to keep fighting in a politically corrupt New York. Not fair to this presidency or administration. Courts in the past have given broad deference, but not me." God. Look, our president's such a goddamn crybaby. I mean, seriously, he's a child. He cries about everything. Presidential harassment. I mean, come on, dude. Really? Really? Oh. He also screamed, prosecutorial misconduct. Now, let me ask you a question, right? Have you ever had a president that cried this much? Honestly. I mean, look, the Republicans held 9 hearings on Benghazi during the Obama presidency. Did President Obama cry about that? Did he go on Twitter and type out an all cap, the prosecutorial misconduct? No, he didn't. Look, I know y'all like, and I agree, we do not like Hillary Clinton here, right? This is not a Hillary-friendly show. At the same time, did Hillary Clinton whine about testifying for 9 straight hours in front of Republican committees, in front of these idiots, in front of these kooks, right, that were questioning her about Benghazi? No. No, she did not. She sat there looking rather annoyed, which is what I would do. I would also sit there being annoyed at these morons. And so, I mean, look, Hillary Clinton, definitely more of a man than Donald Trump. That's for sure. And so Donald Trump cries and whines on Twitter all day long. How can anybody look at that man and think, oh, no, alpha male. Alpha. Totally a big, strong protector man. No, he cries so much. What a bitch. More importantly, what's interesting about that is that nobody cries as much as Donald Trump, and we know that. But also, nobody cries that much if you've got nothing to hide. And that's what's interesting about this, right? So, I mean, what's in those tax returns? We're not actually going to know. Unfortunately, it's not going to be released to the public, especially since they did punt it down to a lower court, which is going to take a while to actually go through and adjudicate that. And we might never know what's in that. But also, the Manhattan DA records, those are secret right now. And so we're not going to know. We're not going to know. And so, even though I guess he should be happy that we're not going to know what's in his tax returns. I've always considered the possibility that he's only hiding this because he's embarrassed. because he's not as rich as he claims to be. That is the big thing about Donald Trump. Doesn't necessarily have to be any sort of financial crimes, although I'm sure there are financial crimes in there to help him make more money, but also that he's not as rich as he says he is. To us, that's like, okay, whatever. But to understand, like, to someone like Trump, that's everything. His wealth or purported wealth is everything to him. And so that's why he cries and whines and screams like a little baby bitch. That's it. Let's go to people making fun of him, shall we? Again, we'll get to more serious stuff after this, but we got to run the victory lap here. Take it while you can. So President Donald Trump received a stinging defeat on Thursday after the United States Supreme Court ruled that he cannot block a subpoena for his financial records from the New York County District Attorney, Cyrus Vance. So now, what made the decision particularly notable was the fact that both President Trump's picks for the Supreme Court, Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, ruled against him. Oh, that's fun. I love that. Because look, one of Donald Trump's biggest cases for re-election is the fact that, hey, look, I got 2 Supreme Court nominees. Look at that. I won. I got you court picks that are fantastic. Oh, no. They ruled against me. Shit. And so, of course, as a result of this, many Twitter users decided to have a little bit of fun with the president's loss. And so we'll go to some of those responses here. One person says, they're all laughing at you. That reminds me of the ad from the Lincoln Project, right? Not so much that they're all laughing at you, but they're all kind of in on it, right? And that was that whole ad that played on Donald Trump's paranoia, which is fantastic. I loved that ad. I showed you guys that. It was great. And so the whole point of that is to get under his skin with his complete and utter insecurities. And one of his insecurities happens to be about loyalty. And so he gets very, very mad when people are disloyal, especially when he thinks that they owe him something. Well, now, if Donald Trump appoints you to the Supreme Court, then Trump's going to think, well, I got you on the Supreme Court. You owe me something. And when somebody that you think, owes you, breaks that oath, well, there's going to be some problems in the future. He can't exactly say, look at these fantastic Supreme Court picks. Because again, Donald Trump doesn't really care about winning on conservative policy, right? That is, unless it helps his reelection chances. No, he cares about things that help him. He lost on this. He's got to turn over those records. And so that's a big case, a big strike, a big black mark against both of these justices. So it is fun. It is fun. Another one says, betrayed by Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Poor Donald Trump. No one ever stands up for him. Who would? Unless you like losing. Another one says, needless to say, and this is a devastating point here, Donald Trump is going to fight a lot harder against releasing his taxes than he has against COVID-19. Oh, that's devastating. And absolutely true, which is why it's devastating. Another, Trump's 2 handpicked justices ruled against him. You know that is infuriating him. At this point, Donald Trump has to be just in a constant rage 24/7 at everything that he is. Again, he's losing big time to Joe Biden. I know, Joe freaking Biden. He's losing to that guy. All over the country in national polls by double digits, in very important swing states by at least 5 points. I mean, that's really bad. Again, Joe Biden is about the most uninspiring presidential candidate since Hillary Clinton, actually even less so. I mean, at least Hillary Clinton could say, I'm going to break the glass ceiling. Victory for women everywhere. Well, Joe Biden can't exactly say that. He's not exactly of the female persuasion. So, nonetheless, if you're losing to somebody that boring, it means you're basically being handed rope and hanging yourself with it, hoisting himself up his own on his own petard, the dotard on the petard. So, rest deserting the sinking ship. Although, yes, as you point out, Mad Hat, that is a disservice to rats. Ouch. All right. Anyway, a couple more responses here. We'll move on. One says, when both of your judges vote against you. Another one says, I'm guessing Trump wants a refund on Kavanaugh and Gorsuch, who both voted against him. No refunds. No refunds. Sorry. Although I wish we could get a refund. Not a fan of Kavanaugh or Gorsuch. And look, so he's already been raging on Twitter, right? So what's interesting about that is we're probably never going to see the records, right? The fact that that's immensely triggering to Donald Trump is just interesting, right? And look, it's evidence that he's not above the law. That's also great. I love that. But it may not be the biggest of victories, understand, but it does kind of mean something because understand that, every little victory helps us stay the course against Donald Trump. Not only in beating Trump, but also beating Trumpism, which will outlast Donald Trump. Because, again, he's just a symptom of the disease. And we've just called the disease for the last couple of years Trumpism. But it's existed for a long time. And also, we should be steeling ourselves to help us defeat the conditions that create people like Donald Trump. And so, in the long term, it actually is just a small moral victory. But I'll take it. I'll take it. And maybe down the road, maybe down the line somewhere, we may actually do, get to see what's Donald Trump's been hiding. And I hope that, no doubt, that in the very least, it's going to be very embarrassing. All right, so let's get to something serious. Let's talk about COVID. It appears that teachers have had enough. A coalition representing millions of American teachers and parents. Hold on a second. I got to change that. Okay. All right. And now we can do this. It appears that teachers are fed up with Donald Trump. Now, a coalition representing millions of American teachers and parents went after the president, as well as Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, over their push to reopen schools without a real plan to protect their students. So, of course, not protecting students is kind of like a go-to move for Republicans, especially in the Trump administration. Nonetheless, right, the NEA, the National Education Association, the National Parent Teacher Association, and 4 other teachers groups issued a joint statement late on Tuesday that criticized Trump and DeVos's guidance for safely reopening schools. So now the president, of course, has been pushing the reopening of schools, and that's despite a massive surge in COVID-19 cases all over the country. So now, let's see. According to this statement, the White House and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention have offered at best conflicting guidance for school reopening, and today offered little additional insight. Without a comprehensive plan that includes federal resources to provide for the safety of our students and educators, with funding for PPE, socially distanced instruction, and addressing racial inequity, we could be putting students, their families, and educators in danger. That statement came just hours after Trump said during a roundtable at the White House that his administration is putting pressure on governors and everybody else to open up schools, to get them open. And not only that, but Betsy DeVos has also threatened to pull funding from schools that have decided not to or have made the decision not to reopen immediately. So, yeah, pulling funding from schools that want to protect their students and their teachers and the kids' parents as well. Classy Republican move. Now, in fact, here's what Trump said about that. We're going to be putting a lot of pressure on open your schools in the fall. And he also accused local officials of keeping schools closed for, quote, political reasons. So I couldn't imagine what political reason there would be to keep schools closed, but whatever. We'll get to that. Now, DeVos also said this. Under the president's strong leadership, our economy is roaring back. Our schools must do the same. But that's not the case. Look, our economy is still kind of a disaster. I mean, it's literally still on fire. Maybe not literally, but you know what I mean. It's at least bleeding. Okay, that's a better analogy, right? Because we just had an additional 1.3 million people file for unemployment. That, of course, adds to the more than 40 million people that are currently out of work. And yet, our official unemployment rate, okay, it's about 11%, right? And so they're saying, yeah, well, but it went down, right? It's only about 11.1%. It was at like 13, so it's been down. We're actually getting better, right? Unofficially, though, we have an unemployment rate that's actually more closer to the 20s. So that's what that is, right? And yet, of course, Donald Trump, Betsy DeVos, and some Republican governors, like Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, are continuing to push to reopen their schools and get things all back to normal. In fact, DeSantis, who's the governor of Florida, as they said, which is a state that has become the global hotspot for coronavirus infections, is now averaging about near 10,000 cases a day, is ordering schools to reopen for in-person classes as early as next month. And it's not just, like reopening classes. No, this is like 5-day in-person, pack all the kids into the schools classes. Not good. That's a bad idea, because the danger in that, of course, is if you have large class sizes, then you end up with no social distancing. And of course, if you don't fund it, then teachers don't get PPE, and neither do students. And so there's some problems, right? Look, we've had schools that have been defunded to the point of which they can't even afford books. And teachers and parents are forced to bring in their own school supplies. There's no extra money for masks. But here's the thing. Betsy DeVos knows this, doesn't care. They don't care at all. Which is why NEA president and 6th grade teacher Lily Eskelsen Garcia went after him in a statement. She said, quote, "No one should listen to Donald Trump or Betsy DeVos when it comes to what is best for students. If Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos have proven anything over the past 4 years, it's that they do not care about students. They have zero credibility for how to best support students and how to reopen classrooms safely." Again, Donald Trump, he's pretty much over coronavirus. So he just wants to put it behind him. Like owing states or cities that he's done rallies in money. You just forget about it. Just put it behind me, right? Not interested in dealing with it. I'm not interested in dealing with coronavirus. I'm not interested in dealing with my past bills. I'm not interested in dealing with basically anything. So let's just move on, go back to normal, and hopefully I can win so that I can continue to do nothing. Now, Garcia has a challenge for DeVos and Trump. Quote, "I dare Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos to sit in that classroom where the kids don't have what they need to be safe, and the school doesn't have enough money to provide a hotspot or a device for them because it's the Senate's failure to finish their job." So I kind of like the idea of Donald Trump and Betsy DeVos sitting in the class, right? For one, who knows? Maybe Donald Trump might learn something. I could imagine Trump being put in the kindergarten class. Okay, Donnie, you need to color within the lines, okay? Oh, you didn't? That's okay, big guy. It's okay. Gold star for you. I feel like that's the right kind of environment for Donald Trump because there, at least there, he's going to get enough praise for not crapping his pants. All right. Anyway, so now Garcia also continued with that thought by saying, where they and educators don't have the masks and PPE they need, where they can't socially distance because there are 40 kids in the class. And so that's, again, going back to the suggestion that they sit in class. So California's large class sizes, pretty much every school has been defunded to the point of where you have huge class sizes. And so maybe we need to fund education. So, but like I said before, Republicans don't care. Donald Trump and DeVos doesn't care. Trump's strategy, by the way, is to give the appearance that everything's getting back to normal without really doing anything to solve any problems. He thinks that one extra additional check, a coronavirus check, right, that he's been pushing lately, and then reopening everything will allow him to salvage his dismal re-election chances. The problem is his focus on we must reopen the economy at all costs is actually losing him voters. I mean, look, a lot of these voters want to actually live through this. I mean, it turns out that most older voters don't actually want to be sacrificed to the economy. Who knew, right? Who knew? That's why Donald Trump is losing to Joe Biden in Florida. And a lot of those same older voters are very unhappy with Ron DeSantis. I mean, his approval rating, which was actually pretty decent. He was at a 58% approval rating, which is not bad for a Republican governor, has taken a dive. It's went from 58 to 51%. And that's because he began reopening the state too early. And now, of course, they have a massive, massive spike in coronavirus cases. Now, compare that to other governors across the country that have taken a more measured approach. For example, Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. Now, she has been threatened. She's been attacked by the president, and, called out. And yet, the measures that she has taken in Michigan have actually gained her double-digit increases in her approval ratings. And so, look, it works. Turns out when you actually try to do the right thing and give a shit about the people, that you're supposed to give a shit about, your constituents, well, you get a little bit more popular. And look, most Americans, they do take this virus very seriously. And when the politicians, when they mess around and they don't take it seriously, they get punished at the polls. And so that's why you're probably going to see in a lot of places a wipeout of Republican politicians and senators, people who are not taking this seriously. So now Trump is saying, again, that the Democrats and that these people, they want to close it for political reasons. What kind of possible political reason would Democrats have to keep schools closed? Schools, the things that conservatives say are, Marxist training camps? Little places that brainwash your children into communism. I mean, that's the argument that conservatives make against public education all the time. And now suddenly the same conservatives are like, we got to get the kids back in school, guys. We got to hurry up. Go, get them back into school. I wonder what changed. Look, we all want to get the kids back to school. We all want to get back to life as soon as possible, right? Unfortunately, we can't do things the way that we used to do, right? What we need in order to get the kids back to school is we need small class sizes. We need PPE. We need more long distance learning tools just in case, right? And that means, guess what? The federal government's got to do their job to help fund schools so they can afford to do these things. Betsy DeVos is not a proponent of that. She has been against that because she personally benefits financially from starving schools of revenue and directing that money towards private charter schools. Again, she kind of ruined the education system here in Michigan by doing the same thing, by setting up charter schools, which, look, I'm not saying every charter school is bad, but I'm saying the majority of them, at least in Michigan, that are DeVos linked, that are DeVos affiliated, well, they're not doing so well. In fact, they're doing terribly. But for her, it's a way for them to be religiously affiliated, to teach creationism, and to not treat, to not actually be held to any sort of higher standards. And so, look, I wouldn't even be against private schools per se, as long as they had specific educational standards that they would have to meet, and that they got no, funding from the government, no government taxpayer money. Unfortunately, we don't have those kind of private schools. So now, that said, Betsy DeVos is also a religious fundamentalist. So she's anti-science, and so probably doesn't even believe in COVID-19. And so doesn't care at all about the safety of these students. She probably believes, well, yeah, hey, look, if you're covered in the blood of Jesus, then you're going to be okay. Then you'll be protected from COVID-19. That doesn't work. I mean, just the fact that people who have, contracted COVID-19 at church and have also seen church leaders, pastors that have died because they didn't take coronavirus seriously, should be all the evidence you need to know that being covered in, quote unquote, the blood of Jesus is not really an effective way of fighting coronavirus. I mean, you could cover yourself in the blood of Jesus as well as a mask and stay 6 feet away, and then you're going to be all right. Just saying. Now, what we need to do, and here's some of the solutions, right, is we need to listen to the teachers, for one, as well as listen to, more importantly, the health experts on when and how to safely reopen the schools, as well as the country. Now, Garcia and the NEA suggest this, that in the absence of a cohesive school reopening strategy from the Trump White House, we should do things like, quote, Congress needs to provide at least $175 billion more for education stabilization. In addition, we're calling for $56 million in directed funding for protective equipment, at least $4 billion to create a special fund to help close the digital divide. Even when schools do open, they will likely need to incorporate online learning. Garcia also urged Congress to pass Pramila Jayapal's Paycheck Guarantee Act, which would use federal grant money to cover 100% of worker benefits and salaries up to $100,000 for 3 months. And I don't think any of the things that they have called for is unreasonable, right? We should be doing this. I mean, look, and if you're worried about how we're going to pay for it, well, guess what? Senator Bernie Sanders just came out with a very modest proposal to cut the Pentagon budget by only 10%. I say that's a modest proposal because I would go as far as cutting it by 50%. If you're interested in moderation, I mean, we could go with the 10 and just use that money to fund PPE for the schools, making sure that we have smaller class sizes and more distance learning opportunities for people who are all right with that. I mean, that's just what I would suggest. I'm hoping they could at least find some of this money somewhere because, look, throughout this entire pandemic, we have bailed out corporations, right? Corporations, the banks, we've even bailed out religious organizations. Why not the students? Why not the teachers? Because it's not like we can't afford to do so. It's just like always, we seem to lack the political will to do the right thing. And I'm hoping that changes. All right. So I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We got more stories, so don't worry about it. We got a great story about all these different organizations and Trump-affiliated allies that have gotten bailed out by your taxpayer money. So if you're not pissed off, you probably will be after this next story. So stay right here. That's going to be great. And if we've got time, Biden blows it once again. All right. Stay right here. We'll be back in a minute. Round the Nation.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Mike Pounds.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, 218 Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so let me just read a couple of super chats here. Ardessa says he's the one that is guilty of misconduct. I'm assuming that you are talking about Donald Trump. Not entirely sure, but that's what I'm guessing. Anonymous says they're going to have to find out that he needs that presidential paycheck. Ooh. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's devastating. No, you don't understand. I need that money. I need it so bad. All right. And Dango Bango says Trump doesn't want to wear the mask to protect his makeup. Hashtag shows the lips. And also, Trumpy fat neck. Oh, Jesus Christ. You guys are brutal. Ouch, man. Ouch. I you know what? I had a soundboard for that, but it's not there. It's Brian Kilmeade saying, "I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat." That's what it made me think of. Thank you, Dangle. Horrible. Oh God, I need to find that clip. Hold on a second. I have it somewhere. I know I'm wasting time, but time that I don't necessarily have, but screw it, because I have to do it. What is it?
I like my meat tight.
Oh God. I don't know if you heard that.
Tighten up my meat.
All right, anyway. I'm pretty sure you guys didn't hear that, but it's funny nonetheless. Tighten up my meat. All right, anyway, that's enough of that. Channel members of the day: Chris L. and Justin Shim. And special shout out, of course, to the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. Lorna Morgan and Mark Tetriel. So, tighten up my meat.
Tighten up my meat.
Oh, God. So bad. Oh, good. You guys did hear it. Oh, boy. All right.
Wait. You're getting nervous, man.
Ooh. All right. I'm terrible. Having too much fun on the show when I shouldn't. All right. Anyway. Serious story. The disclosures on who got paycheck protection money continue. And surprise, surprise, there's a lot of Trump allies who received a lot of taxpayer bailouts from the government. So now let's go down the list. First, we've got White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. Now, she didn't personally receive that money, but her family did. Her parents received millions of dollars in Paycheck Protection Program loans, according to data released by the Small Business Administration this week. Now, this was, of course, after pressure for Steven Mnuchin to begin releasing some of the recipients of that loan money. And by the way, we only have the particular ranges because they didn't actually release the official amounts. All right. So now, more here. So about McEnany. So her parents own a business called McEnany Roofing. It's a commercial roofing company owned by both of her parents, Michael and Leanne McEnany. They received somewhere between $1 to $2 million from the Paycheck Protection Program. So now, McEnany Roofing appears to employ close to about 30 people in its corporate offices, according to its website, and the total number of employees could not be determined. However, according to the loan data, McEnany Roofing said it employed about 141 people. And of course, the terms of the program, right? The program rules said that as long as the money is used to pay employees to keep them on the payroll, as well as to pay for things like rent and utilities, then the government will forgive the entire loan. And so it becomes a grant and essentially is free money, right? Free money to continue paying payroll. So now the whole purpose is to keep people employed, and so that, people don't become unemployed and then go on the unemployment rolls. But it still ends up being government money. So now here's the thing. I agree with the goal of this, right? If you need to keep your employees, if you want to keep them, that's great. Again, I'm okay with paying, I'm more okay with paying the salaries of these employees, right? Making sure their salaries are paid for by government money instead of giving these corporations basically what is a bailout fund, right? Nonetheless, right? This is the situation. This is the program that we have because we live in America where corporations basically get whatever the hell they want. All right. That said, McEnany kind of has a history of being against government programs, especially free money from the government. Oh, right. But that's only when it comes to poor people like welfare. In fact, she said, quote, "It was exactly right that welfare recipients should feel enough shame to motivate themselves off of government assistance." Well, Kaylee, maybe your parents should do the same thing. I mean, get themselves off the government teat, right? I mean, that's what you say, right? Now, in another segment, McEnany told Ed Henry back in April that the program, the Paycheck Protection Program that her parents have used, was designed to go out to companies with 10 or fewer employees. That's actually not true. It's supposed to go to 500 or fewer employees, essentially small businesses, right? But she said the vast majority, as I noted, 1 million of the 1.6 million loans that went out were companies with 10 or fewer employees. Well, no, that's not who they're helping. They're helping people that are actually these companies that are much, much bigger than 10 employees and even 500 employees. Now, that said, let's go to another beneficiary. Happens to be Stephen Mnuchin's favorite golf course that he was a member of. Now, this is the Riviera Country Club. It's a nice, swanky golf club in L.A. They received about $2 to $5 million in assistance through the Paycheck Protection Program. Now, Mnuchin also happens to assist in the operation of that program. So, no surprise that his favorite golf course that he's a member of happened to get bailed out by a program that he administered. Of course, right? So to be fair, we don't know if he's still involved with that organization or not, but he has attended the establishment as far back as 2019, as last year. So now the thing is, right, is that, again, this is supposed to assist companies with 500 workers on payroll or fewer, small businesses. But unfortunately, according to the Daily Beast, scads of for-profit and nonprofit operations tied to members of Congress, current and former White House aides, and political vendors and lobbyists associated with members of both parties were able to receive these loans, even if they had more than 500 employees. Not only that, but millions more went to the Church of Scientology and other religious institutions. But hey, that golf course retained 159 jobs at the cost of $2 to $5 million. Right. Now, as mentioned by the Daily Beast, religious institutions also got a cut of that money. In fact, more than 10,000 had taken a combined near $3 billion in coronavirus financial aid from the U.S. government, according to an analysis by The Guardian. A list of recipients of the Federal Paycheck Protection Program payments includes churches, synagogues, temples, and private religious schools. Among them are ministries of wealthy televangelists accused of fraud and even one secretive sect. Not only that, but you also had religious leaders who had advised the Trump administration have received millions, as did a non-for-profit organization that supports Israeli soldiers. Great. I don't know. Look, the whole thing about these religious institutions, churches, right? Getting government, basically what's government grants, right? As long as they don't fire people. And some of that money goes to paying their rent and utilities. Isn't that a violation of the First Amendment, separation of church and state? We're basically funding religions. Isn't that weird? I mean, this is the clergy, right? This is money going to pay priests. I mean, it's really, I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable. So now, that said, right? According to the SBA, 19 organizations that have received the highest loan amount available between $5 and $10 million were religious. 7 of those 19 were affiliated with the Catholic Church, including the Archdiocese of New York. Life Church, which is headquartered in Edmond, Oklahoma, but has 34 locations and produces podcasts and online religion programs, received between $5 and $10 million and said the money would help retain just 451 workers. Look, even if these places serve the community, right? Like Life Church, right? I still feel uncomfortable because of the principle of not, funding, not using government taxpayer money to subsidize churches. And there's a good case to be made against doing that, especially considering some of the churches that have received this money were run by fraudsters. For example, you had televangelists Jimmy Swaggart, Jim Baker, and Peter Popoff getting a lot of money. Now, Swaggart, who leads the Family Worship Center in Louisiana, had been defrocked by the Pentecostal Assemblies of God back in the 90s for being implicated in sex scandals. He received between $2 to $5 million. Jim Baker of Morningside Church Productions was defrocked by the Assemblies of God after a highly publicized sexual encounter with a church secretary, and even went to prison in the 90s on fraud and conspiracy charges surrounding his church fundraising. And now he's even promoting an emergency survival product. You guys know Jim Baker and his nasty food buckets, right? End of the world food buckets. Gross. And is now even being sued for selling a fake coronavirus cure. He received between $350,000 to $1 million. Because, of course. And Peter Popoff, of course, was exposed for using an earpiece to receive radio messages from his wife so he could pretend to know personal details about his audience during services. So, look, I guess that's like less severe. That's obviously less severe than like fraud and sex stuff, but still pretty dirty, right? He received between $350,000 to $1 million. Word of Faith Fellowship also received money. That organization had been investigated for allegedly abusing its congregants, and its leaders have faced charges from both fraud to human trafficking. And yet, again, they receive money. I mean, it's amazing. These people are criminals. And they're, obvious hucksters and fraudsters, and yet the taxpayer is subsidizing them. It's amazing. Now, that said, some of these same people are actually super rich and didn't need that money in the first place. So let's go to this, right? Mac Hammond. Mac Hammond's church, Living Word Christian Center in Minnesota, acquired a private jet on March 11th, just before coronavirus took off in the United States. Now, if you can buy a private jet, then I'm pretty sure that you can fund your employees during coronavirus. I mean, here's an idea. You could sell your private jet. You don't need to go begging the taxpayer for money. But that's exactly what they did. Again, you have to go and apply for these Paycheck Protection Program loans. to the Small Business Administration, right? How many actual good small businesses that serve their community were screwed out of loans because the money was all eaten up by these rich assholes? How much? Billions of dollars. More. That same church was approved for between $2 and $5 million in coronavirus aid. Another top loan recipient is Joyce Meyer Ministries, a Missouri-based Christian ministry that hosts TV shows and radio programs. They received between $5 and $10 million, even though they reported having $12 million cash on hand at the end of 2019, according to an annual financial report. They had money. But apparently, it's not enough to support Meyer's lavish lifestyle. Back in 2003, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch published a 4-part special detailing Meyer's $10 million corporate jet, $2 million home, and other houses. Well, of course, you got to come begging to the taxpayer to keep up your lavish lifestyle. I mean, those jets, they're not going to buy themselves. And what is God? Is God going to buy you a jet? No, God needs you to buy him a jet. Sickening. All right. And all of this is in context of the crumbs that you and I have received, right? That regular people have received. One $1,200 check and some unemployment benefits. But we're not done. Now, it's also found out that several religious groups whose leaders are reportedly Trump evangelical advisors also took between $2 and $5 million each. One of them is Paula White. Now, Paula White's City of Destiny received between $150,000 to $350,000. She's also the chair of Donald Trump's Faith and Opportunity Initiative, Eternal Word Television Network, conservative Catholic network in which Trump has appeared before to announce his executive order on protecting statues, Confederate statues. They received between $2 and $5 million. And of course, it's not just churches that have received this money. It's also non-ministry organizations, including Friends of the Israel Defense Forces. So now we're subsidizing Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces. Now that's sickening, given to the fact that the Israeli Defense Forces are oppressing Palestinians. I mean, that's our money. Our money's going to that, right? To people who support that. Now, they describe their mission is to offer educational, cultural, recreational, and social service programs that facilitates and provides hope, purpose, and life-changing support for the soldiers who protect Israel and Jews worldwide. They receive between $2 and $5 million. And then here's the coup de grace, right? And by the way, before I get to that, Nancy Pelosi's husband got $350,000 to $1 million. So don't think that it's just, Donald Trump or people associated with Donald Trump. They're kind of all in on it. Everybody, all the pigs are going to the trough. All of them. All right. So now, that said, one more. It turns out you also have hate groups that are receiving this money. For example, the Anti-Immigrant Center for Immigration Studies. They receive money. The Federation for American Immigration Reform, anti-Muslim hate group Center for Security Policy, and the American Family Association, which is another anti-LGBT hate group, the Liberty Council, and the Pacific Justice Institute. These 6 nonprofits got between $2,350,000 and $5,700,000 in loans, which will be fully forgiven if the groups maintain their payrolls. And of course, that's the whole rub, right? If they maintain their payrolls, which, by the way, only 60% of the money that they receive can go to payroll. The rest can go to whatever they want. Rents, utilities, and anything extra. So if 60% of that money goes to their keeping employees on staff, then it becomes a grant. Billions of dollars in free money to hate groups. I mean, and the Friends of Israel and all that stuff. Jesus. What a list. What a list of people and organizations that we are funded while we are all suffering because the government refuses to help us in any sort of meaningful way. And by the way, do you see these same churches, these same companies helping regular people out? I mean, look, other than keeping people on staff, right, which is what they're supposed to do. So that's like the bare minimum. What are they doing for anyone else? And by the way, a lot of these companies are still laying people off, but they still have to keep some people on staff in order to get that money. And look, they can still let people go, and then it just turns into a loan, which, again, they could do all sorts of accounting tricks to probably be able to get out of. Accounting tricks that you and I don't have the ability to do. Corporate leverages, buyouts from other companies that are, under their umbrella, all sorts of tricky moves that they can do to get out of repaying loans. Of course. Look, we've forgotten about, or I should say the government has forgotten about us, right? Or just doesn't care. I guess I would go with doesn't really care because, look, we got over 40 million people that are unemployed. We got essential workers that are getting still, that are still having to put their lives on the line and getting crap wages for it. They're not getting anything extra. They're bearing all the risk. Where's the people's bailout? Where is it? Well, it's not coming. Not with this corrupt government, which is, of course, giving money to their friends, their allies, and even religious institutions. As usual, we've learned the government doesn't work for us. They only work for themselves, their buddies, and most importantly, the donors. Gross. Okay, RBS, how much money did Paula White get? Her City of Destiny received between $150,000 to $350,000. So that's how much money her church received. All right. Yeah, there's a lot more information about where these loans went to. I could spend the whole show talking about the egregious places these loans went to. But I ain't got time for that. But we do have time for one more. Or we don't, but I'm going to do it anyway. Presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden is still rejecting calls from Democrats to expand Medicare to every American during a pandemic. Now, he did so during a face-to-face interview with dying activist Addie Barkan, who asked him point blank if it's time to embrace Medicare for all. This was his answer.
Do you see a future where health insurance is no longer tied to employment? Will America ever have a single-payer system where health care is guaranteed as a human right?
Healthcare guaranteed as a human right, but taking away the right to have a private plan if you want a private plan, I disagree with. I believe we can do all the things you want to do and do them better, more quickly than with Medicare for all. But we have the same goal because healthcare is a right, not a privilege.
No, we don't have the same goal. If you're not guaranteeing Medicare for all, then you're not really in favor of guaranteeing health care to every single American. That is just a fact. That is a fact. So, look, here we go again, right? You can have guaranteed health care as a human right and tell people that you can only have it if you can afford it. No, it's not a guarantee. This is not hard. And I'm sorry, but Joe Biden says, no, we can do everything that you want, and we can do it faster, and we can do it better. No, one of those things is a lie. Yes, you can do some healthcare faster, right? Which is to go for the public option, right? Yeah, that could do it faster, but it wouldn't do it better. No, Medicare for all is the gold standard. Medicare for all should be the standard. And yet, he's not in favor of it. And he's trying to gaslight the American people. He's trying to gaslight Addie Barkin right to his face. It's amazing. All right. But look, the end goal here for Joe Biden isn't to guarantee health care to every single American, right? No, it's to protect health insurance profits. That's the problem. And so what Biden doesn't get is that that's the very problem that we're trying to solve with the system. It's the system. But he's going to go on to feign that he understands that the system is broken and that his plan is going to fix it. Take a look.
My question is, what does preserving private insurance really do for people?
It depends on the plan. Look, you know what my bills were for my hospitalization? For $280,000. I get it, man. I'm not new to this. I'm not where you are, but I get it. I fully get it. The cost of my sons were well over $1 million.
No, look, you don't get it. You don't get it. This man was a United States senator for decades. $280,000, that's a lot of money. $1 million, that's a lot of money even for you, right? But for somebody making $30,000 to $40,000 a year, as most of us are an American, that's impossible. Those medical bills are impossible to pay for. That's the kind of medical bill that makes people want to commit suicide. So, no, you don't get it because you've never had to do that. You've gotten yourself out of debt because of your political connections. But for regular people, there's no way out of that debt. No way. And I think it's completely immoral to put people in that kind of debt because they got cancer or something bad happened to them. They got into an accident or happened to get ALS like Addie Barkin. And the thing is that guess what? We have an idea to make sure that doesn't happen to anybody. Medicare for all. Our current system, however, gets people into that debt. And look, even if we have a public option, that's not going to solve the problem. What they're going to do, part of Joe Biden's plan is, so I'm going to do a public option, and then I'm going to increase subsidies for the gold plan, right? Oh, so you're going to give more, basically more in subsidies to health insurance companies. That's your big plan. We're just going to increase the amount of federal funding for subsidies. How's that going to control costs? Without any sort of cost controls, which you would have with a Medicare for all option or a Medicare for all system, right? Instead of a public option, you would have one single payer system that would be able to negotiate for prices with hospitals, with providers, instead of having a multi-payer, which is what we have right now, that is unable to do those kinds of price controls because they don't have that kind of leverage. And so what's going to happen? Prices are going to continue to rise, and all you're doing is just giving more money. You know, there's that meme about trickle down. It kind of works here, where it shows the wine glasses, right? And it says, well, this is how it's supposed to work. Right? And you're just pouring water into one glass and it all flows down to the other glasses, right? How it really works is the wine glass just gets bigger. I feel like that's an appropriate analogy here because what you're doing is you're just going to, pour more into these health insurance companies. Their glass is just going to get bigger. Their prices are going to continue to rise and we're just putting more federal money towards it. And then you're not only doing that, but you're also giving Republicans ammunition to say, well, look, this is way too expensive. We can't afford this. Let's pull back on the funding. And guess what? We're pretty much back to where we started. And if you don't think that they're going to chip away at a public option with health insurance company support, well, I got news for you, right? I know one common thing is, well, they're going to do that with Medicare for all too. How? If health insurance companies are out of business, they're not going to really be doing a whole lot of lobbying because they're not going to be in business anymore to hire lobbyists. it's going to be a lot more difficult to defund a Medicare for all system. Not only that, but you're going to have a gigantic uprising of people that are like, hey, I just got these benefits and it turns out I really like them. Don't you goddamn dare take it away from me. Whereas it's not going to be the same thing if you have just this hodgepodge of systems that Joe Biden is saying. Not only that, but you're making it needlessly more complicated and more expensive in reality. But look, unfortunately, that's where Joe Biden is going. And so, look, I keep getting frustrated with people, right? Unsurprisingly, especially people that I'm usually on the side of. I mean, Bernie Sanders, for example. Bernie Sanders said, well, Joe Biden's going to be the most progressive president since FDR. Really? Bernie, no. No, that's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Look, status quo Joe Biden. Now, that doesn't mean I support Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to continue pulling us backwards. I want to go forward. You're not going to go forward with Donald Trump. All right? So, look, I look at it this way. Donald Trump and the Republicans, they pulled us 5 steps back, right? Joe Biden, if we're lucky, he's going to take us 2 steps forward. Well, guess what? We're still 3 steps behind. That's the situation that we find ourselves in. Bernie Sanders would not have just been 5 steps ahead, would have been 7 steps ahead if he had won the nomination. And so the point is, we're not really going forward with Joe Biden, even if we're just getting pulled back from the brink a little bit. And so if he wins, look, and it's likely that Joe Biden's going to win in a landslide, right? And it's not because of Joe Biden. It's not because he's the most progressive president or going to be the most progressive president since FDR. I don't buy that at all. I don't think he's going to be, right? So if he wins in a landslide, I think he's going to be nothing more than a footnote. Why? Because this election is not about him. This election is a rebuke on Trump. It's a referendum election. And so Biden is just going to be known as the guy who beat an extremely weak, pathetic, worthless president. And will basically do nothing. Nothing with that victory. Very, very little. And what's sad about this is that this is somebody who could attain a level of greatness by actually embracing progressive policy like this and moving us past one of the darkest presidencies in modern history and really rebuilding and really reshaping America after not only a health crisis like COVID-19, a pandemic, but also an economic recession bigger than what we've seen since the Great Recession, on par with the Great Depression. This is one that could be for the history books, folks, right? This is what it could be. And yet, Joe Biden is resisting every single metric, every single measure, every single policy position that would actually help us clear this and make this a brighter, better future. Instead, he's going to do what the establishment is well known for doing. Very, very little bit. Tiny, tiny bits of change on the outside, generally continuity on the inside. And I'm afraid that's going to lead us down an even darker path in the future. Think Trump, but competent. A competent authoritarian. And so that's the problem. And this is all to shield corporations and the donor class from populist reform. It's such a waste. What a waste of a wonderful opportunity presented to you on a silver platter to completely bury the GOP, the Republican Party. And instead, Joe Biden, he says, I want to work with those guys. This is why I have little hope for the future. Don't sugarcoat it. Even if you're going to vote for Joe Biden, which I'm probably going to, I'm being honest with you guys, right? If you're voting for Joe Biden, you don't have to buy into the bullshit that, oh no, Joe Biden's going to be great. He's going to be progressive. No, he's going to suck. but he's just going to suck less than Donald Trump. And that's why ultimately a lot of people are going to vote for him, because he's not Donald Trump. And that's exactly the situation that the DNC, that the Democrats have wanted all along. They wanted it in 2016, and they finally got it here in 2020. So there you go. Frustrating as hell. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream. Please consider subscribing to the channel or supporting us, patreon.com/TWTNation, to support independent progressive media. That's all. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Mike Pounds.
Tighten up my meat.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Tolerate.
Please clap.
I like my meat tight.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Mike Pounds.